Hi all, my name is Milagros Rosa, and today I'll be addressing a topic that has been on my list of interest for quite some time now. My topic is causes of youth sport withdrawal and influence of the achievement goal theory approach over long-term sport participation. And this has been on my scope or my point of view or interest because it's somewhat personal and personal in the way that I work at a gym where we offer specialized training for athletes, and I have seen firsthand how athletes lose their interest in sport participation and even training. Um, I am a curious cat, so I usually sit down and talk with either the athletes when they check into the gym or with their parents when they ask for a coffee. And I could see that parental pressure could be an issue. Our athletes are mostly teenagers, so I could see their genuine interest in their new social encounters, whether they wanted to have fun or have social activities, and they will compare it with some sort of sacrifice that they have to do because of their competitive standpoint. So basically, they're invited to a talent show, or invited to a party, or just want to go to the movies, and they have to say no because they have a game, a tournament, or a practice session the next day. So this motivated me to look for literature and try to understand the why behind young athletes' decision to withdraw themselves from sports, being on the brink of their development and capacity to acquire and learn skills. So, from the existent research and literature review, I found out some consistencies in the following factors or influencing factors in dropout, which were boredom, um, which lies in the motivational climate of the athlete and where they are practicing or developing themselves. So coaches must ensure a fun environment, basically. Perception of sport success. This is somewhat tricky. This is where the interesting part comes in because to understand someone's motivation, we must understand what success and failure mean to that person. So the best way to do this is to examine a person's goals and how they interact with that individual's perception of competence, self-worth, or perceived ability. Research and data suggest that it can be seen that perception of the sport success criteria used by significant others, such as the coach and sport friends, are especially important variables for understanding dropout behavior in sports. So basically, what mom, dad, coach, or friends think about what success is might translate or reflect into the kid's perspective or perceived ability. Some gender differences are also in point or have come up in the research literature, where females usually are in a constant struggle or a constant battle where they want to be physically active or they want to participate in sport, but they are afraid they would lose their feminine traits. Also, some important variables that came across the research were like were that sorry that they did not like the pressure, training was too hard, did not like to compete, did not win enough, and did not feel important enough. There are some cultural influence in this as well, where for sport or participation is integrally connected to male identity and the meanings of masculinity. In other words, sport is teaching boys how to play their gender roles, and being recognized for one's ability in sport is enjoyable and rewarding. So basically, boys get all the credit and are exposed to sporting events, and that it is okay, and I quote, to be competitive, while females are not. And coach and parent influences goes back again to the motivational climate And data confirms that the coach is not only responsible for athletic or athlete's success, but also for termination of a career. That is pretty strong because the coach and the athlete have a relationship, a long-term relationship, um, and especially in children, their experiences, their first encounter with sports is very, very important. Also, excessive control and negative feedback are aspects that can lead to increased dropout rates among children athletes. This mainly because they are unable to put the situation into perspective and they can begin feeling down or sad about their performance. Before continuing, the next two slides are trying to compare quantitative and qualitative research designs, and I wanted to take a different approach within this criteria, where instead of talking about what quantitative and qualitative research is, I wanted to have a more applied aspect, and wanted to encourage you guys to come into a discussion forum and see within this same topic how you would approach a quantitative research or a qualitative research. What I would say is the quantitative research is looking to understand, not to understand, to have numerical data to back up information in variables, influence variables on variables, and qualitative data or research is looking more towards the understanding and exploring a phenomenon. That being said, my quantitative research design, which is what we have in front, would look something like this. My research question would be, how much influence do parents, coaches, and peers have on youth sport withdrawal? Can managing motivation of others aid in reducing withdrawal? So the purpose of the study basically gives shape to your research design, and my purpose would be to determine the level of influence if motivation management is taught to parents, coaches, and peers have on youth sport withdrawal. Being an experiment, I want random selection of participants. I do want to stress out that I would like to have a specific age range, which would fall into demographic variables. I would like to work with 5 to 7 year olds in order to understand, to go a little bit like back in time in the developmental area. Also, the instrumentation and data collection, I would like to have Likert scale questionnaires. Obviously, this will be modified for the needs of the experiment and in order for my population to be able to understand what they are doing. Mostly, this is a perspective that I would like to point out before going forward, is that having such a young population, I have to have the parents involved. So that's my main focus when working with such young athletes, to see how much their environment influences them. As an intervention process, I would like to have a control group and an experiment group, and I would like to have psychological skills applied to the experimental group, and have them to see how they translate to the youngsters, to the young athletes. Data analysis, I'll have a pre-test, post-test. Reliability and validity will also be addressed by a test and retest for reliability of the instrument. So that would be addressing the questionnaire. And validity, I would have face validity and content validity. I really like content validity, where we ask experts in the field whether the content of a measure covers the full domain of the content. So this area, this topic has been addressed for quite some time now. It has been addressed with teenagers mostly, but that doesn't mean that they aren't experts in the area. So I would like to address content validity the most. For my qualitative perspective, my research question would look something like, what are the influencing factors in youth sport withdrawal? Exploring goal achievement theory approach within the sports psychology practice. The purpose of the study would look something like to be able to study and understand the influencing factors that leads a young athlete to withdraw from sport and explore how understanding goal achievement theory can lead to the sports psychology consultant to address this issue in a developmental and preventive manner within their professional practice. For my participant selection, I'd like purposive sampling because I want to identify the population the research team would like to work with and which will be more capable of providing information relevant to the research. Data collection, I'd like a semi-structured interview. I like to give the freedom to my research team or myself to probe as much as they like to draw data, new data, existing data, and new themes in order to be novel and be proactive or in the research. Reliability, being a qualitative perspective and having interview, I would have to review the transcripts. And validity, I like triangulation because I can determine the common factors over and over again, rich and thick descriptions of all the process and all the findings. And audit trails, I have someone who's objective, not a subjective point of view. And this person would see the research in its entirety and assess if the project is correct or has a coherent procedure. As far as what research design I would personally use, I would like to use a mixed methods research design. This because there has in the sports psychology field in general, there has been quantitative research already done. Within my topic, there has been quantitative research already done. I would like to understand why behind all the statistics, behind all the numbers. Also, mixed methods would allow me to confirm data, provide new data, if any, and provide a reason behind that data that was collected. I feel that a mixed methods research design could provide a reason to why these factors are considered constant, therefore giving the sports psychology consultant a spectrum to work with. This can allow us as future professionals to take a proactive action rather than standing in a reactive position, especially when identifying age groups in a developmental matter, gender, and sports that have the highest tendency to drop out of sports. Some implications that my research could have, or my research topic could have in the existing literature or field. A small confession would have to be that I did not change the topic, or I did not change anything in the research questions because I wanted to be open and be raw about it and have an honest discussion about the implementation of qualitative and quantitative research design in this particular topic. This leads me to the need for diversity. So my topic and my research approach can address diversity. So also research and data, existing data suggests that the research conducted so far has been circling the same population and have established similar points over and over again, which is fantastic because it proves that and means that findings can be generalized. Normally, as I mentioned before, we have addressed teenagers, adolescents, normally from the ages 8 to 13. So a recommendation was made, and it was that younger and more diverse populations should be looked into to understand the role of multiple goals in facilitating or constraining motivation, cognition, and learning. Formal representation of goals. What are we looking at is for specific goals and how they influence the performance or athlete retention. This would be addressed with the qualitative research. Longitudinal study, addressing a mixed methods design allows us to actually have a long and consistent research because, once again, and I can't stress this enough, we're addressing developmental areas, socialization within sport, that allow us to understand why athletes drop out of sport. Therefore, a longitudinal study is warranted. So, having a mixed methods approach, I have the freedom to work on a long period of time from a quantitative perspective and from a qualitative perspective. This next point is not exactly addressed in my research topics or research questions, but it's something that was suggested, and it was to examine youth that don't participate in sport. And McCarthy, Jones, and Clark Carter recommend to examine developmental sources of enjoyment and non-enjoyment among youths who choose not to participate in sport to establish what factors might encourage them to participate. Therefore, we have literature examining youth that chooses freely to participate in sport and youth that doesn't, in order to understand or see what factors are common within sport participation. And it all comes down to this: how can we make it better? Basically, we have to work on motivational climate. We have to work on balance. It is a challenge for us practitioners or future practitioners because it's a fine line between ego orientation and task orientation. So we have to work on the demands of competitiveness or competitive sport and the chance to gain social recognition of one's achievement. Also, coming up with realistic and attainable goals. Research suggests over and over again that parents or significant others, even individuals who hold realistic and attainable goals for their children or themselves, they show the greatest level of intrinsic motivation, the key factor for continued involvement in sport. We want athletes that start at 5-6 years old to have that experience, that positive experience in sport, and maintain themselves active, whether be it competitive or not, but active. Also, this is very important, and coaches sometimes are faulty in this aspect, and have athletes be on the same skill level and have positive feedback or positive reinforcement. So athletes have to work with those with similar abilities. That way the coach can address difficulties or developmental factors or skill acquisition deficiencies in the same manner and have the athletes motivated, task motivated to complete by effort their own success or construct or their own success, and possibly limit their discouragement in sport. Also, fostering positive reinforcement or feedback to keep them focused on what would be intrinsic motivation and task-oriented goals, which is proven to be of major influence upon long-term sport involvement. So basically, and as an ending thought, as a future professional in the industry, we have to work on balance. We have to work on balance of how the athlete perceives, create a perception of effort that leads to success and that leads to consistency in their skills, therefore their evolution in sport. This has been my presentation for today. I hope you have liked it. I look forward to the discussion forums, and have a nice week.